Why do your legs feel weaker, even when you believe you're doing everything right? Is that new stiffness in your joints simply aging, or is there a hidden saboteur in your own kitchen? The truth is often not in what you're failing to do, but in a quiet mistake you're already making, one you've been told is healthy your entire life. Today, we're not just giving you a list. We're telling you the story of Samuel, a strong man who discovered that a healthy habit was secretly dismantling the foundation of his strength. His journey is the wake-up call you might not know you need. If you are ready to uncover the truths that can protect your independence, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Let us know you're with us by typing "ready" in the comments below. Now, our story begins in Samuel's garden, moments before a single, faltering step changed everything. The morning sun, warm and benevolent, spilled over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, casting a golden haze upon Samuel's garden. This small kingdom, carved from the earth by his own hands, was his sanctuary. The air smelled of damp soil and the sweet green perfume of tomato leaves, a scent more comforting to him than any cologne. He knelt, the familiar weight of his favorite trowel cool and solid in his palm. For a man who had spent 40 years shaping wood, commanding saws and hammers with precision and strength, the patient, quiet work of gardening was a welcome piece. Here, he shaped life itself. His fingers, thick and calloused from a lifetime of labor, worked their way around the base of a zucchini plant, expertly pulling a stubborn weed. He saw the world in clean lines and right angles, in things built to last. His garden was no different. Rows of beans stood like disciplined soldiers, his lettuces were full and vibrant, and the cornstalks were already climbing toward the vast blue sky. A deep satisfaction settled in his chest. This was good work, honest work, but then he shifted his weight. A low, familiar ache flared in his right knee, a dull throb that had become his unwelcome shadow over the past year. He paused, breathing through the discomfort. It was a traitorous joint, this knee. It remembered being 20, scrambling over scaffolding and carrying 80-pound beams as if they were sticks, and it seemed to punish him for the memory. He ignored it, as he always did, pushing the pain into a corner of his mind. A little stiffness was the price of a life well lived, he told himself. Nothing more. He reached for the watering can, his knuckles brushing against the rough soil. The real problem wasn't the ache, it was the weakness. A strange and hollow feeling that had crept into his thighs. A thief in the night stealing the power he had always taken for granted. He remembered, just a decade ago, hoisting his young grandson onto his shoulders, the boy's delighted squeals echoing as he marched around this very garden, his legs like twin oaks, unshakable. The memory was so clear it was painful, a sharp contrast to the man who now had to consciously plan the act of standing up. He decided it was time. Placing the trowel down, he planted his left hand firmly on the damp earth, a general plotting his next move. Push with the hand, straighten the good leg, then bring the other one up. Easy. It was a humiliating little calculation he performed a dozen times a day. As he pushed, his muscles trembled with a fatigue that felt far deeper than the morning's work deserved. For a terrifying second, he felt his arm wobble, his body refusing the command. Anger, hot and sharp, flashed through him. He was Samuel, the man who had built his own house, whose strength was a quiet point of pride. He would not be defeated by a patch of dirt. With a grunt, he forced himself upright, his heart hammering against his ribs, not from the effort, but from the shame of it. He quickly glanced around, but the neighboring gardens were empty. No one had seen. The relief was as sharp as the anger had been. To distract himself, he turned his attention to the climbing roses that cascaded over the back fence, their crimson blooms a riot of color against the weathered wood. One branch, heavy with flowers, had grown wild, reaching for a neighbor's oak tree. He fetched his pruning shears, the worn wooden handles fitting into his hand like a friendly handshake. Reaching up, stretching onto the balls of his feet, he clipped at the errant branch. The sun was warm on his back, the birds were singing. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Then it happened. As he snipped through the thickest part of the stem, a sudden, electric pain, sharp as a shard of glass, shot through his calf. It wasn't a cramp, it was a violent, stabbing protest. His leg gave way instantly, with no warning. His balance, once as reliable as a level, vanished. The world tilted sideways. a confusing blur of green leaves and blue sky. He flailed, his hand grasping at empty air as the rose thorns scratched his arm. He landed with a soft, ignominious thud in the muddy patch near the rain barrel where Clara had been watering the day before. The impact was gentle, cushioned by the soft earth, but the shock of it stole his breath. He lay there for a second, the cool, wet mud seeping through his trousers, the scent of crushed mint leaves rising around him. He wasn't hurt, not really, but a cold, paralyzing dread washed over him. His body had not just failed him, it had betrayed him completely. "Samuel, are you all right?" Clara's voice, laced with alarm, cut through his daze. He saw her rushing from the back porch, her apron still on, her face a mask of worry. The sight of her concern was like salt on a wound, turning his fear into a defensive, brittle anger. He scrambled to sit up, desperate to look like he was in control. "I'm fine," he said, his voice coming out as a gruff bark. "Just slipped in the mud. It's nothing." She knelt beside him, her warm hand on his shoulder, ignoring his tone. "You fell hard. Are you sure nothing's broken?" "I'm fine, Clara," he repeated, pushing her hand away more gently this time. He couldn't meet her eyes. He couldn't bear to see his own weakness reflected in them. As she helped him to his feet, her small frame surprisingly strong, the weakness in his legs felt profound. They were like strangers, unreliable and foreign. He leaned on her more than he wanted to, the short walk back to the house feeling like a mile-long trek of defeat. He told her it was just a slip, just a patch of mud. But as he sat heavily in his armchair on the porch, staring back at the garden that was now a scene of his humiliation, he knew it was a lie. It wasn't the mud, it was him, and for the first time in his life, Samuel was truly, deeply afraid. Denial is a fortress built brick by brick. The morning after his fall, Samuel was busy fortifying his. "It was just a patch of mud," he grumbled to Clara, pushing past her to prove his strength by carrying a heavy bag of birdseed to the feeder. Each step was a carefully controlled movement against the fire in his joints. Clara watched, her heart aching with a worry he refused to acknowledge. Her love was a practical thing, and she responded in the only way she knew how, with nutrition. She presented him with a tall, vibrant glass of sunshine yellow liquid. "A tropical anti-inflammatory smoothie," she announced proudly. "Pineapple for the joints and banana for your muscles." It was a glass of pure, loving intention. To refuse would be cruel. Samuel drank it down, the intense sweetness, a foreign taste in his usual black coffee morning. He gave her a tight smile, but within the hour, a strange, leaden weight settled deep within his limbs. The smoldering ache in his knees intensified, no longer a whisper of pain but a low, angry hum. He blamed the strain of the birdseed, the damp morning air, anything but the healthy tonic he'd just consumed. Clara saw the grimace he couldn't hide. That afternoon, they were in the bright, sterile office of Dr. Chen, a young doctor with kind, perceptive eyes. Samuel repeated his story. He was just getting old. He'd slipped in the mud. Dr. Chen listened, then leaned forward, his gaze direct. "Getting older is a fact, Samuel. But suffering is often a choice. You mentioned your wife makes sure you eat fruit every morning." "The healthiest," Clara added. "Sometimes," the doctor said gently, "the things we believe are helping the most are quietly feeding the fire. Our bodies change. Our ability to process high levels of natural sugar and acid diminishes. That healthy habit can become a source of chronic, system-wide inflammation." Samuel felt a prickle of indignation. It sounded like an accusation. "It's fruit, doctor. Just fruit." Dr. Chen smiled faintly. "I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to believe your own body. Just watch. Notice how you feel an hour after you eat. Information," he said, handing them a blood test form, "is the only tool that can break down a fortress." Samuel left the office scoffing, dismissing the advice as New Age nonsense. But as they drove home in silence, a single phrase echoed in his mind, unsettling the very foundation of his denial, quietly feeding the fire. Samuel scoffed at the idea of a physical food journal. He was a man who built bookshelves, not diaries. But Dr. Chen's words had planted a splinter in his mind, and against his own stubborn will, he began to keep a ledger in his head. He started to watch, to notice. On Tuesday, Clara squeezed him a tall, beautiful glass of fresh orange juice. An hour later, As he tried to fix a squeaky hinge on the kitchen cabinet, he felt a familiar, aching stiffness creep into the joints of his fingers, making the simple act of turning a screwdriver a frustrating chore. He dismissed it as a coincidence. The community garden was hosting its annual summer potluck that Saturday. A tremor of anxiety went through Samuel at the thought of navigating the bumpy paths between garden plots, of having to find a place to sit down quickly. He hated that feeling, the feeling of calculating his own weakness. Clara, wanting to contribute something vibrant and healthy, prepared a magnificent fruit salad. It was a jewel box of color: deep purple grapes, ruby red watermelon, and bright slices of orange and mango. Everyone raved about it. Wanting to appear as hearty and untroubled as he once was, Samuel served himself a generous portion. He ate with gusto, the sweet, cool fruit, a welcome relief in the afternoon heat. He felt fine, even good. For a moment, he felt a smug satisfaction, as if he had proven the young doctor wrong. The betrayal came in the dead of night. He was jolted from a deep sleep by a savage, searing pain in his right big toe. It was an agony so sharp and specific, it felt as if a hot poker was being pressed into the joint. He threw back the covers, his breath catching in his throat. His toe was red, swollen, and exquisitely tender to the slightest touch. He lay there in the dark, bathed in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. And then he remembered the doctor's words, a ghostly echo in the painful silence. Sugars, acids, inflammation. He thought of the heaping bowl of fruit salad, of the sweet grapes and the sugary mango. The sweetness he had enjoyed just hours before now tasted like poison in his memory. This was no coincidence. For the first time, the walls of his denial began to crumble. The next day, Samuel was sore, grumpy, and quiet. His toe still throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. He was a detective now, and the fruit was his prime suspect. The afternoon was sweltering, the kind of day that left the air thick and heavy. Clara, ever attentive, emerged from the kitchen with 2 large, smiling wedges of watermelon on a plate. The perfect way to hydrate, she said cheerfully. Samuel looked at the glistening red fruit. He remembered the swollen, tight feeling in his ankles the night of the potluck, a heaviness that had felt like more than just fatigue. He looked at Clara's hopeful face and for the first time chose a different path. "I think I'll just have some water, dear," he said, his voice softer than he intended. He saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes. "Are you sure? It's so refreshing." Her care was a language, and he had just refused to speak it. A small, wounded silence settled between them before she simply nodded and took the plate back inside. He felt a pang of guilt, but also a sliver of resolve. He spent the afternoon on the porch, a glass of ice water sweating in his hand, and watched his neighbor, Maria, tending to her garden. She was a few years younger than him, a widow with a kind face and a seemingly endless supply of energy. She moved with a fluid, easy grace that he now envied with a fierce intensity. He noticed she was snacking as she worked, popping something into her mouth from a small bowl. He squinted, trying to see. It wasn't slices of melon or handfuls of grapes. It looked like dark berries and perhaps some nuts. By evening, as the sun began to dip below the hills, Samuel took stock. He stood up from his chair. The ache in his knees was still there, a constant companion, but the angry, swollen tightness around his ankles had lessened. The throbbing in his toe had subsided to a dull murmur. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a change. It was a clue. He realized with a startling clarity that hydration was just water, and refreshment didn't have to come with a hidden cost. The next morning, armed with his small victory, Samuel walked over to Maria's plot. His pride made the short journey feel like miles. He couldn't just ask for help, that wasn't his way. So he started by admiring her impressive tomato plants, asking what she used to keep the pests away. Maria smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She was kind and didn't press. She answered his questions about the tomatoes, and then a comfortable silence fell between them as they both looked out over their gardens. Finally, Samuel cleared his throat. "You seem to have a lot of energy," he said, the words feeling awkward and heavy. "My legs, they're just not what they used to be." Her smile softened with understanding. "Mine either, Samuel. A few years ago, my hands were so stiff with arthritis, I could barely hold a trowel." She held them out for him to see. They were nimble and strong. A friend told me to look at my plate, not for what I should take away, but for what I should add. She didn't list bad foods. Instead, she spoke of foods that calm the fire and foods that feed the fire. She explained in her simple, gentle way how some foods, even healthy ones like mangoes or green apples, are full of sugars and acids that can be like gasoline on the smoldering embers of inflammation in an aging body. She gestured towards his own porch, where Clara had just placed a freshly filled bowl of fruit, a centerpiece of bright oranges and yellow bananas. "Clara loves you very much," Maria said softly. "She fills that bowl with sunshine every day. But sometimes, for some people, too much of one kind of sunshine can burn." The metaphor struck him with the force of a physical blow. Sunshine can burn. It wasn't about good or bad. It wasn't Clara's fault. It was about what was right for his body, in this season of his life. A wave of gratitude for Maria's simple wisdom washed over him, followed immediately by a sharp, painful pang of guilt for the way he had been treating his wife. That evening, Samuel tried to explain it to Clara. He was clumsy, his words tangled with years of unspoken pride. Maria was saying, "About the fruit," he began. "It's like sunshine, see, but sometimes it burns." Clara stared at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about, Samuel? Burns what?" He tried again, stumbling over the words inflammation and natural sugars. All she heard was a critique, a rejection of her care, a judgment on the very love she poured into his meals. Her face crumpled. "So now I'm poisoning you?" she asked, her voice trembling with hurt. "After everything I do to try and keep you healthy, you're telling me I'm making it worse." The argument that followed was the worst they'd had in years. It was a storm of misunderstood intentions and wounded feelings. He felt defensive, she felt unappreciated. The conversation ended with a slammed door and a chasm of silence between them. Defeated, lonely, and angry at the world, Samuel did something out of pure spite. He went to the fruit bowl, grabbed the largest, ripest mango, and ate the entire thing standing over the sink, its sweet juice running down his chin. It was a bitter, childish rebellion. The consequences were swift and devastating. He awoke the next morning in a firestorm of inflammation. A cruel symphony of pain played in every joint. It wasn't just his toe, it was his ankles, his knees, his hips. A strange, tingling nerve pain, hot and sharp, shot down his legs. He tried to swing his feet out of bed and cried out, a raw, involuntary sound of agony. He couldn't do it. He was a prisoner in his own body. This was rock bottom. The sound brought Clara running. She saw him, pale and sweat-drenched, his face contorted in pain. In that instant, all her own hurt vanished, replaced by a wave of pure, unadulterated love. She rushed to his side, sitting on the edge of the bed and taking his hand. "Okay," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "No more fighting. Just tell me again. Tell me everything Maria said. Slowly. We'll figure this out together." He looked into her eyes, saw the unwavering loyalty there, and something inside him finally broke. The pride, the denial, the fear, it all washed away, leaving only a deep, aching vulnerability. He gripped her hand like a lifeline. "Together," he repeated, his voice hoarse. And in that moment of absolute surrender, a new beginning was born. Their kitchen became a laboratory of hope. The journey of 1,000 miles began with a single, shared act. Together, they emptied the fruit bowl. It was an emotional, symbolic cleansing. They packed the oranges, bananas, and mangoes into a bag for their neighbors' young children and replaced them with a bowl of deep blue blueberries and rich, dark cherries. They became a team. Clara, armed with a new sense of purpose, spent hours researching online. Samuel, humbled and willing to learn, listened. They went to the farmer's market, not just as shoppers, but as foragers on a mission. They discovered the creamy, satisfying goodness of avocados, which Clara served on toast for breakfast instead of orange juice. They learned that a handful of raspberries could curb a sugar craving, and that stewed pears with a dash of cinnamon were a comforting evening treat. The change wasn't a miracle, it was a gradual mending. There were still bad days, mornings when the old stiffness returned like an unwelcome ghost. But slowly, the good days began to outnumber the bad. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then 3 steps forward. Samuel started to notice the small victories. He could kneel to weed his garden for 10 minutes without a searing pain. He could walk to the end of the block and back without feeling a heavy dread in his legs. One afternoon, he climbed the stairs without having to pull himself up by the railing. And when he reached the top, he stood for a moment in silence, a feeling of pure triumph washing over him. Clara saw the changes, not just in his body, but in his spirit. The guarded, grumpy man was softening, replaced by the man she had married, one with a quick smile and a light in his eyes. Their shared mission had healed more than just his joints. It had reforged the bond between them, making it stronger than ever. The summer drew to a close, and the air began to carry the first crisp hint of autumn. The garden was overflowing, a testament to a season of hard work and sunshine. Samuel moved through it a changed man. He wasn't the invincible 30-year-old from his memories, but he was something better. He was wise. He was strong in a new way, his body no longer a battlefield, but a partner he had learned to listen to. One bright Sunday afternoon, he turned to Clara. "Let's go for a walk," he said, "on the Meadow Hill Trail." She looked at him, her eyes wide. They hadn't attempted that trail, with its steep, winding inclines, in over 2 years. She saw the quiet confidence on his face and simply nodded, her heart swelling with pride. He navigated the trail with a steady, even pace. His legs felt strong beneath him, capable and sure. There was no pain, no weakness, only the pleasant burn of working muscles and the clean, cool air filling his lungs. They reached the scenic overlook at the top, a place that offered a breathtaking panorama of Willow Creek. They sat on the bench, not because he needed the rest, but because the view deserved to be savored. As he looked out over the town, Samuel reflected on the summer. He realized the greatest obstacle he had faced wasn't the fructose or the malic acid, it was his own stubborn pride. It was his fear that admitting weakness was the same as admitting defeat. He had learned that true strength wasn't about refusing to bend, it was about having the wisdom to adapt, the courage to listen, and the humility to accept help. He reached over and took Clara's hand, his calloused fingers lacing through hers. Her love had been the constant, unwavering force that had guided him back to himself. "Thank you," he said softly, looking at her. She smiled, squeezing his hand. "For what?" "For the sunshine," he said, "and for helping me learn how to stand in it." And so, Samuel's journey reminds us that our health is a story we write every day, one choice at a time. It's not about fear or restriction, but about empowerment. It's about listening to the unique language of your own body and having the courage to make changes that honor the life you want to live. Thank you for joining us for this story. If it resonated with you, or if you have your own story of discovery to share, please let us know in the comments below. Your experiences create a community of wisdom that helps us all. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that can help guide you on your own health journey. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and take care of yourselves.